feeling so off at the moment, sort of stressed and worried. I have a call with the doctor from the pain clinic on Friday, so in 2 days, and it's from him I got the gabapentin, and since it hasn't worked, I'm really hoping that he suggests something else instead of saying, yeah, sorry, your time is up at the pain clinic now, which it is. That won't be false information, but it would be super frustrating since I started this medication with like hope that it could work, and he was like saying every time that we both were like, okay, this isn't working, let's raise the medication levels, and I got new hope. And so yeah, I'm hoping for, what is it called now? The medication that is quite similar to gabapentin, pregabalin, something like that. Yeah, I'm really hoping for it, because since I talked about how I had been feeling well after the hypomanic episode, and it's like every time you feel sort of a bit better, where your energy levels are a bit better or your pain levels are a bit better, you sort of forget how bad it could be, and you sort of like gaslight yourself and say like, oh, it probably wasn't that bad, I probably made it that bad in my own head. So now that it's back, it's like even more hard to cope with, because it was better for like a month instead of just like a week, or I don't know. It usually like fluctuates both in like pain levels, and like I can have a period where it's like, okay, now it's a bit better, and now I just have the fatigue. But yeah, so I'm quite kind of focused on that, and I'm also thinking a lot about in September I'm going to meet my usual doctor. No, it's a new doctor at the health clinic, and fix the thing you need to send to the government for about how much you're sick for, percentage-wise, and how much you're working. And the thing was, I was going to start working 25%, but I don't think it will continue to work economically. I'm thinking that I might have to start working 50%, like directly, which is not great. So yeah, a lot of thoughts. So I probably need to, talking about it, I realize I probably need to like write all those thoughts out so I don't carry it in my head, cause myself more anxiety. And on the topic of that, I was going to talk about, because I mentioned Heartstopper and how it has been quite a heavy season. Still haven't watched the last episode, and I was earlier this month or last, I was rewatching Girls, which I haven't watched since it aired. And I remember, I've been thinking about it, and I think when it aired, I was in DBT therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, and I was in quite a bad place, but I think what I realized watching this and watching Heartstopper, and I sort of forgotten about it, is that heavy shows or like TV series that you follow for a good amount of time, or like stuff like that, or it just gets to me so much. And I remember it also from this one session in the DBT therapy. In DBT therapy you both have group therapy and you have individual therapy, and in the group therapy we listen to this song that the therapist played and everyone felt so much for it. I didn't necessarily, but I remember feeling so heavy from everyone else's response to that. And that's the thing, I always like suck up other people's emotions or like issues, and it feels like they are my own. And I go around carrying this enormous burden of like sometimes made up issues like in the TV shows, or stuff which isn't my own, which isn't very healthy when you have mental health issues from the start. But yeah, so I probably need to be more aware of that, since there are so many stressors right now for my mental health, like having a what's the word? Have-manic episode, and they even ask, which I love, that have you had any symptoms of depression afterwards, and I haven't really, I think, but it's just like stress from being ill. So let's start talking about something more fun, and that is that I started listening to Intimacies by Kitamura, and I think I've listened to 1.5 hours, and is it 5 or 6? Can't remember. And I'm loving it, truly loving it. It's fascinating. I'm thinking there was this scene where the main character, she's watching these 3 people pick up cigarette stubs on the on the road, side of the road where you walk. What's it called? Pavement. That's the American word though. Anyhow, and I thought her like musings on it were quite funny, and then I remembered Hannah May talked about it. She coming from England, moving to Netherlands, and reacting on how clean the city is, like visually. And for me, not personally, but I remember something else, because I lived in London for a year. My family and my brother came to visit me, and I was at school and they were living in this, I can't remember, was it a Victorian or Georgian house that had been turned into a bed and breakfast. And I remember my brother was talking about how like not nice it looked, like the wallpaper was peeling, and it wasn't something I thought about, like every place can't be as nice as Stockholm, especially economically, and yeah. And I just thought the place was fun. And then I remembered he was in Greece visiting his girlfriend from there, and he was talking about how dirty the city was in Athens, and with like graffiti everywhere, and like, yeah, it's just the perspective coming from the other way around. And I think if you think about Sweden and Stockholm and the big cities right now, you can have the sort of same opinions that seem to be put forth by the author about Hague, that it is a facade because we have a lot of shootings right now, and it's awful to like pick up the news and you see that it has happened in a new place, or that someone new has been injured or dead, and there are a lot of kids brought into these gangs, like literally kids, and it's because of segregation, which is not a surprise. And now on top of that we have the threat of terrorism, because of the Quran burnings, which has taken place now for a good few months, from people who are very right-wing and don't think that these people should be here in Sweden. And yeah, you can definitely say that the cleanness of Stockholm as a city is a facade. And I think that is a metaphor, is something I've never thought of before. I think the cleanness of Stockholm has always been just something that made it feel like home. Like when I moved back here, it felt safe, ironically, but it was safer then. And another thought I had was, I love when our main characters are talking about her work and interpreting as a job, and her colleague feeling threatened by this person in the Hague court she was interpreting for. And it's like, yeah, you can only imagine. I always had a fascination with people like that, like from watching Criminal Minds and every sort of like psychology, criminal sort of show ever, from like TV dramas to documentaries. What makes people be like that? Nature versus nurture. And another thing I wanted to mention was that I also got a few quotes for my essay, which is nice. I think I don't have that much left of it, I hope. But it's harder to write now, and my brain is much slower, and I have much severe brain fog. So yeah, but I will continue to read Intimacies because I'm loving it. So I realized that the clip must have disappeared, because I remember talking about this, but it doesn't exist on any clip I have left. So what I was talking about was, in the book she gets one big case, which is being a translator for an African an African leader who has been accused of war crimes and war against, what's it called, crimes against humanities and yeah, crimes like that, like the highest sort of crimes there are to be prosecuted for. And like, it's a big thing. And so they say in the book that he is the first leader. Let's see what it actually said, because I saved it. It was the first time a former head of state stood prosecuted in the court. And okay, so it's African leader who decided to go against the election results, and yeah, things got out of hand in a major way. So it was like, was the first head of state tried in Hague courts an African leader, because that didn't like make sense in my head. Like, I have a bachelor in political science, so it's something we study a lot, and it's something I follow a lot on the news, and I was like thinking of the Yugoslavian wars and the people that got prosecuted there. And so I did some Googling, and I found that in for real, Milosevic, who was the, if I remember correctly, the Serbian leader during the Yugoslavian wars, was the first leader who was in trial for exactly the same crimes as the leader in the book. But the thing was, he died before he could get the sentence. Then we have Omar al-Bashir, 2008, was tried against, like I said, the same crimes in Hague. She has decided to make up the like major thing that happens in the book, and that was something I found really interesting, because I was thinking a lot while I was listening, why did she decide to do that? Because that's a clear like deviation, and there must be a reason why she chose specifically an African leader. And like racism and like it's not a theme that is specifically what's it called, dealt with in the book, I'd say. And so the theory I have is like there is like an obvious reason why she could decide to do that, and that is she's not interested to portray real life in that sense. She's not interested to be pulled into like those sort of discussions. But like, then again, why an African leader? And then there is a really interesting discussion in the end, because she has a lot of like more intimate, in the true sense, meetings, not in the big court where she's like meters and meters and meters away from him, but like in jail or whatever it's called in English, where she's there with his lawyers and translating for them, and they are talking more like one-on-one. And then in the end, let's find what he says to her. I like this woman because she's really not Western, but in reality you are a part of the institution you work for. But you must not. But you must realize that the creating justice in this court is is far from. God, I'm having difficulties translating now. Is far from non-partial. You come from a land which has created horrible crimes and cruelties. Under other circumstances, your Ministry of Foreign Affairs would be on trial here, and not I. Everybody knows that is so. And when it comes to your race, he does a small pause and looks at me. Well, the less you say about that awful history, the better. So that sort of like explains it a bit and makes it like in a very small paragraph. She gets a lot of depth in, like in just a couple of sentences. He says to her in that intimate way that is described throughout the book. And yeah, and also in the afterword she is saying that in this story I'm not trying to portray despite that the tribunal in this novel has some realities with the International Court of in Hague, it's not meant to represent that or its workings. So yeah, I think the ending explains it and the afterwards, and in an amazing and great way that fits into the story as a whole. So I just wanted to show this. This what's it called in English? This glass dome. I got this from IKEA quite a few years ago, and I had like small plants in it that I haven't used it for a long time. So I've had this, what's it called? Philodendron silver sword, which I got as a cutting online, and I just haven't liked living here. The leaves that has come out has been really small and weak and hasn't developed very well. You can see that the big ones here at the top, they are the ones from like the original ones, and then these ones are the ones who has developed since I got it, and they are much smaller, as you can see. So I got this glass dome back from my dad's because my mom used it in the past, and you can see that I think I got it like 10 days ago, and it has suddenly got like 8 air roots and already a new leaf developing, and maybe a small one here as well. And I was just like so surprised, like in such a short time. So the glass dome is a bit too small, so I've been checking out the internet and I found that you can get ones for like 100 kroner, bit over. So I will probably order that in a month or 2 months. And yeah, I'm just really excited that this plant is finally a little bit happier, because I've seen it on some like plant YouTubers and I love the look of it, and like having plants with different colors of the leaf, because this one is sort of like a silver tone which is really gorgeous compared to like the lighter green ones, or you can see what I have in what's this called, Pilea. It's like middle green. This one I showed when I was doing the cutting. This very big now, philodendron pearl marks, which I like. It's really liking it right now in this window compared to my last flat when it was farther away from the light. Oh, that's my cat down here. So this was the newest leaf. It's still not hardened, and it has like 1, 2, 3, 4 new leaves starting, and here I have 2 small Hoyas. Don't really see this one that well, but it's a philodendron dark lord, and it has very like green maroon colors, especially like the stems is very maroon, and it has a new leaf coming on, so I'm trying to like moisture it every day so it will come out well. I think these 2 were the leaves on the cutting when I got it. This is the leaf I got maybe this spring, and yeah, this one is coming out hopefully well. So yeah. Hi, so it's quite a bit later now. It's, God, what is it? The 20... Sorry, my cat is brushing herself on the camera stand. It's the 25th today, but I realized when I looked at the clips on my memory card that I had not recorded what I thought of the ending of Intimacies and like of the book as a whole. So I thought I'd do that while filling up my medicine boxes for the weekend, which I haven't done during the week because I haven't had all my medicines. So yeah. So as a whole, I really liked the book. I found it very fascinating. I like the whole concept of following someone who was a translator, the whole translating as a job. I would really like to read Polly Barton's book. I can't remember what it's called right now. I will write it on the screen because I found it really interesting. So I will have to order that sometime in the future. And so the main character, I can't remember her name right now, but she has this relationship with this guy she meets. I can't remember exactly where she meets him, but yeah, she sees him as more cultured, more like suave, more upper echelons, more fitting into those kind of environment. So she goes to like certain art parties with a friend she met in the city who works as an art curator, and she's thinking like, yeah, he would fit in here so much better than I do, which is interesting and sad. And we as readers don't necessarily see that, and yeah, they seem to get along, etc. And I would say in the first half of the book, the relationship with him doesn't have that much, doesn't take that much room. There's this scene where her friend and her partner is meeting up, but she has become late, and she comes to her friend's house and the partner is already there, and there's this whole weird feeling, and I don't know the purpose of that scene. It's like she's suspecting that that they know each other, or that they are flirting without her there. And I mean, you can interpret that as like her insecurities. She's not really trusting him, which like you can see as a foreshadowing of what happens later, because he is actually married to someone else, a woman who now lives in Lisbon, if I remember correctly, who moved there with their children, and he decides to go there and like fix the whole thing, not like get her back, but like get the children, we can assume. And he says, yeah, I'm just going to be gone for a week, maybe a little bit more, but not more than that. And yeah, you can probably guess what happens. And I found the whole uncertainty, because during that period he asks her to live in his flat. So she lives in his flat with like traces of the wife there, like a photo of them as a family, and she finds them so like gorgeous and picture perfect as a family, like right in front of her eyes. So like I said, insecurities and like feeling like she's not good enough for him, and like the uncertainty of what is going on there. He's not like responding to a lot of her texts of how is everything going, and yeah. But then we have the ending. I'm not going to spoil it, but like everything is resolved, and I found it really boring. I think, yeah, I'm a person who likes open endings. Yeah, totally. I will always prefer an open ending because it's more interesting. It's evocative. It makes you think. It makes you like reflect on what is most likely. The ending, on accounts of what has happened earlier in the book, and that makes a book stay with me longer afterwards, compared to if the book is resolved. The same thing with the movies. And yeah, so that was like, okay, that's boring. And I think the whole thing is also resolved with so yeah, this book was amazing. I loved it. So yeah, I'm really happy that I read this, and yeah, it makes me want to go out and read more, and that is the sort of books that I love, that makes me like, oh, this is something I want to learn more of. Yeah, I want to read more stuff that is related to translation, which is perfect for this month, but I think the Barton book is something that I will buy this fall sometime. So yeah.